There's a moment when something goes wrong, and you feel it immediately. The tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your stomach, that silent question rising in your mind, why is this happening? It doesn't matter whether it's a failed project, a rejection, a breakup, or a mistake you can't undo. The reaction is almost the same. Something inside you contracts, and without realizing it, you begin fighting reality. You replay what should have happened. You imagine a different outcome. You tell yourself this wasn't supposed to go this way. But here's the truth you rarely hear. It's not the struggle that hurts you most. It's your resistance to it. You don't actually fear difficulty. You fear what difficulty makes you feel. Embarrassment, loss of control, shame, uncertainty. And if you've ever laid awake at night thinking about a mistake, if you've ever felt behind while everyone else seemed ahead, if you've ever questioned your own strength in silence, then you already know this feeling. Struggle isn't loud. It's quiet and heavy. And you've probably told yourself that once things get easier, you'll finally feel stable, finally feel confident, finally feel safe. But what if safety doesn't come from avoiding struggle? What if it comes from understanding it? There's a shift, one simple but powerful shift, that changes how you experience pain, failure, and difficulty. When you understand it, struggle doesn't disappear, but the fear does. And that changes everything. Because fear is what drains you. Fear is what paralyzes you. Fear is what makes temporary pain feel permanent. Think about a time when something didn't go your way. Maybe you worked hard for something and didn't get it. Maybe someone walked away. Maybe you gave your best and still failed. In that moment, the pain wasn't just the event. It was the meaning you attached to it. It means I'm not good enough. It means I'm behind. It means I can't handle this. That meaning is heavier than the event itself. And here's something powerful. When you stop making struggle means something about your worth. It loses its power over you. There was a period in your life, maybe you remember it clearly, when everything felt like proof of inadequacy. A small mistake felt catastrophic. A setback felt like confirmation. A delay felt like failure. You didn't just experience difficulty, you became it. And that's where fear grows. Not from pain, but from identity. You begin to think, I'm someone who can't handle this. I'm someone who struggles. I'm someone who always falls short. But struggle is not identity. It's training. And when you understand that, something shifts. Imagine an athlete who tears a muscle during training. In the moment, it hurts. It's frustrating. It's inconvenient. But the athlete doesn't interpret it as proof of weakness. They interpret it as part of the process. Recovery becomes part of growth. Now imagine interpreting your own setbacks the same way. Not as verdicts, not as punishments, but as conditioning. Because here's the deeper truth. Life isn't testing you to see if you break. It's shaping you to see if you adapt. The problem isn't that struggle exists. The problem is that you've been taught to see it as a threat. You were taught that success should be smooth, that confidence should feel effortless, that growth should feel inspiring. But real growth is uncomfortable. Real growth feels uncertain. It feels awkward. It feels slow. And sometimes it feels unfair. The moment you stop expecting life to be easy, you stop being shocked when it's not. And that shock, that constant, this shouldn't be happening, is what exhausts you. Struggle becomes terrifying when you think it's abnormal. It becomes manageable when you see it as inevitable. You don't fear the ocean once you understand waves are part of it. You don't fear the gym once you understand soreness builds strength. And you don't fear struggle once you understand it's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're expanding. Over the next hour, you're going to see struggle differently. And you're going to understand why resistance creates suffering, why emotions feel overwhelming, why failure feels personal, why acceptance is power, not weakness, and how emotional control creates inner stability. You won't leave this with fake motivation. You'll leave with clarity. And clarity is stronger than motivation, because motivation fades when things get hard. Clarity doesn't. Struggle will still show up in your life. Deadlines will still pressure you. People will still disappoint you. Plans will still fall apart. But when you understand this one shift, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "Who is this shaping me into?" That's when fear loses its grip. That's when pressure becomes preparation. That's when difficulty stops feeling like an attack and starts feeling like training. And once you see that, you'll never fear struggle the same way again. Chapter 1. The lie you were taught about struggle. You weren't born afraid of difficulty. As a child, you fell down constantly. You tried, you failed, you tried again. There was no shame attached to falling, but somewhere along the way, that changed. At some point, struggle stopped meaning learning and started meaning something is wrong. Wrong with the situation, wrong with the timing, wrong with you. And that subtle shift quietly reshaped how you experience pain today. You were taught, indirectly and repeatedly, that success should look smooth. If you're capable, it should feel natural. If you're intelligent, it should be easy. If you're meant for something, it shouldn't feel this uncomfortable. That's the lie. Growth has never been smooth. Mastery has never been effortless. Progress has never been comfortable. But you rarely see the messy middle. You see the polished result. You hear the victory speech. You see the highlight reel. You don't see the confusion, the doubt, the quiet frustration. So when your own path feels unstable, you assume something is wrong. Think back to the first time you struggled publicly. Maybe you failed an exam. Maybe you stumbled during a presentation. Maybe someone else outperformed you. The discomfort wasn't just internal. It was visible, and that visibility changed everything. Struggle stopped being neutral. It became dangerous, because it wasn't just about improving anymore. It became about protecting your image. You didn't just want to grow. You wanted to avoid looking incapable. That's when struggle began to feel threatening. You started to associate difficulty with embarrassment, uncertainty with weakness, delay with inadequacy. And from that moment forward, your nervous system reacted to challenge as if it were a threat. Notice what happens when you face something unfamiliar. Your heart rate increases. Your thoughts speed up. You imagine worst-case outcomes. You're not reacting to the task itself. You're reacting to what you think it says about you. That interpretation was built over years. You were praised when you performed well. You were compared when you fell behind. You were rewarded for getting it right quickly. So your brain learned something simple. Struggle equals risk to identity. And once something feels like a threat to identity, your body treats it like danger. That's why you procrastinate when something feels overwhelming. That's why you hesitate when stepping into new territory. That's why you feel tension before attempting something meaningful. You're not lazy, you're protecting your self-image. But here's the shift that changes everything. Struggle does not mean you are incapable. It means you are stretching. Stretching feels unstable. When a muscle grows, it tears microscopically first. When a mind expands, certainty dissolves first. Instability is not weakness, it's movement. The real issue isn't that struggle exists, it's that you were conditioned to crave early certainty. You wanted confidence before repetition, clarity before experience, results before process. But confidence is built inside difficulty, not outside it. Think about something you're skilled at now. There was a time when it felt unnatural, awkward, uncomfortable. You made mistakes. You doubted yourself. You felt behind. But you continued. Over time, what once felt threatening became familiar. The task didn't change. Your identity did. Struggle didn't disappear. Your interpretation of it evolved. That's the first truth you need to internalize. Struggle is not a verdict. It's exposure to the unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar always feels uncomfortable. There's another layer to the lie. You were told that if something is aligned with you, it should feel smooth. If it's meant to be, it will be easy. That sounds comforting, but it's misleading. What demands growth will rarely feel easy at first. Stepping into leadership feels uncomfortable. Speaking your truth feels risky. Building discipline feels restrictive before it feels freeing. If you only move toward what feels easy, you remain confined to what you already know. Some comfort protects you in the short term, but stagnation erodes you in the long term, so you end up choosing between two discomforts: the discomfort of growth or the discomfort of staying the same. One strengthens you, the other quietly drains you. The lie about struggle pushes you toward the second, because it convinces you that difficulty means deficiency. But here is the reality that frees you. Struggle is not a signal to stop. It is a signal you have entered new territory. And new territory always feels unstable. The first time you assert yourself, your voice may shake. The first time you pursue something ambitious, you may feel unqualified. The first time you confront your limitations, you may feel exposed. None of that is evidence you're incapable. It's evidence you're expanding. Once you separate struggle from identity, something shifts inside you. You stop interpreting difficulty as a threat. You start seeing it as training, and training is never meant to feel comfortable. The lie you were taught about struggle kept you small. The truth will make you resilient. Struggle is not proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're in motion. And motion, even unstable motion, is how growth begins. If you understand this, you begin to loosen the grip fear has on you, because you no longer ask, "What does this say about me?" You begin asking, "What is this building in me?" That single question changes how you walk into difficulty. And it's the first step toward never fearing struggle the same way again. Chapter 2. The real enemy. Is resistant struggle is rarely what breaks you. Resistance does. There is a difference between pain and suffering, and you've probably felt it without realizing it. Pain is the event. Suffering is the argument you have with the event. The rejection email is pain. The thought, "This shouldn't have happened," is resistance. The missed opportunity is pain. The spiral of "I always mess things up" is resistance. The breakup is pain. The refusal to accept it's over is resistance, and resistance quietly multiplies what was originally manageable. When something doesn't go your way, notice the immediate reaction inside you. Your body tightens, your thoughts accelerate, your mind begins rewriting reality. This can't be happening. This isn't fair. This ruins everything. That inner protest feels automatic. But it's not harmless. It turns a moment into a crisis. Imagine holding a weight in your hand. It's heavy, but you can manage it. Now imagine tensing every muscle in your body while holding that same weight. The weight didn't change. Your resistance did. And now it feels unbearable. That's what happens when you fight reality. You don't reduce pain, you amplify it. There's a story that might feel familiar. You prepare for something important. You rehearse, you plan, you invest energy. Then the outcome doesn't match your expectations. In that moment, you feel disappointed. That's natural. But instead of allowing the disappointment to pass through you, you replay it. You imagine how it should have gone. You compare yourself to others. You question your ability. Days later, the event is over, but the emotional weight remains. Not because the situation is still happening, because you're still resisting it. Resistance keeps the experience alive in your mind. It refuses to let the moment complete itself. You may think resisting means you care, but caring and clinging are not the same thing. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of what happened. It means you acknowledge that it did happen. That distinction is powerful. When you resist, you're arguing with facts. When you accept, you conserve energy, and energy is what you need to move forward. Think about the last time you were stuck in traffic. You had somewhere to be. The delay irritated you. You felt tension rise, but your frustration didn't move the cars. It didn't shorten the delay. It only changed your internal state. Now imagine two versions of you in that same traffic. In one version, you tighten your jaw. I complain internally. Check the clock every minute. Feel your stress spike. In the other, you exhale, acknowledge the delay, adjust your expectations, maybe use the time to think or listen to something meaningful. The external situation is identical, but one version suffers more. The difference is resistance. You've been taught that acceptance equals weakness, that if you accept something, you're surrendering. But acceptance is not surrender. It is clarity. Clarity says, this is happening. From that place, you can choose your response. Without clarity, you react. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. Resistance traps you in reaction. It keeps you fighting what already exists. And while you're fighting reality, you're not building strength. You're draining it. There's something deeper happening when you resist. You're protecting a version of how life was supposed to go. You built expectations, you built timelines, you built assumptions, and when reality doesn't align with those expectations, you experience a collision. But expectations are internal. Reality is external. When they clash, reality wins every time. The longer you argue with that, the more exhausted you become. You don't suffer because life is unpredictable. You suffer because you demand predictability. The moment you release the demand, the pressure decreases. This doesn't mean you stop striving. It means you stop attaching your peace to outcomes. That's the shift. You can pursue excellence without resisting setbacks. You can want success without collapsing when you fail. You can aim high without treating obstacles as personal attacks. Resistance makes everything personal. Acceptance makes everything instructional. When something goes wrong, resistance asks, why is this happening to me? Acceptance asks, what is required of me now? That question changes your posture. It moves you from victimhood to agency, and agency restores power. The real enemy has never been struggle. It has been your refusal to allow struggle to exist without labeling it catastrophic. When you remove the label, the intensity decreases. The pain might still be present, but it's cleaner. It's not tangled with identity. It's not amplified by fear. It's not stretched across days by rumination. It becomes something you can face. And facing something is very different from fighting it. Fighting is frantic. Facing is steady. Fighting drains you. Facing builds you. The more you practice acceptance in small moments, the stronger you become in larger ones. Missed train, unexpected bill, critical feedback. Each is an opportunity to train your response. You don't eliminate discomfort, you reduce unnecessary suffering. That's the power of this chapter. Struggle is not your enemy. Resistance is, and the moment you stop arguing with reality, you reclaim energy. With that energy, you can adapt. With adaptation, you grow. And growth is impossible while you're busy fighting what already is. The next time something doesn't go your way, pause. Notice the urge to resist. Notice the internal protest. Then say quietly to yourself, this is happening, not with defeat, with steadiness. That steadiness is strength. And when you understand this deeply, struggle stops feeling like an attack. It becomes something you move through, not something that controls you. That's when fear begins to loosen its grip, because you realize the real battle was never outside you. It was the argument within. Chapter 3. You're not afraid of struggle. You're afraid of the feeling. Struggle itself is neutral. It's just an event, a circumstance, a moment. What gives it power is the emotion it triggers inside you. And if you look closely, you'll notice something important. You're not actually afraid of hard work. You're not afraid of effort. You're not even afraid of failure. You're afraid of how those things make you feel. Embarrassed, exposed, insufficient, out of control. That's what you try to avoid. When you procrastinate on something important, it's rarely because you don't care. It's because starting it forces you to face uncertainty. Uncertainty triggers anxiety. Anxiety feels uncomfortable, so you delay the task. Not to avoid the work, but to avoid the feeling. This is the pattern most people never notice. You organize your life around emotional avoidance. You choose what feels safe. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay quiet when you want to speak. Not because you're incapable, but because discomfort feels threatening. Think about a time you avoided a conversation you needed to have. Maybe you didn't confront someone who crossed a boundary. Maybe you didn't ask for what you deserved. Maybe you didn't express how you truly felt. The risk wasn't physical. It was emotional. You feared rejection. You feared conflict. You feared being misunderstood. So you avoided the conversation. And in the short term, you felt relief. But in the long term, the discomfort didn't disappear. It grew quietly. Avoided emotions don't dissolve. They accumulate. That accumulation becomes anxiety. It becomes resentment. It becomes self-doubt. And slowly, you begin to believe you can't handle difficult situations. But that belief isn't accurate. You've simply never trained your tolerance for discomfort. Emotional tolerance is like a muscle. If you never let yourself feel uncomfortable emotions fully, you never strengthen that muscle. You try to distract yourself. You scroll. You overwork. You overthink. Anything to escape the raw sensation. But here's the paradox. The more you avoid a feeling, the stronger it becomes. The more you resist anxiety, the more intense it feels. The more you push away sadness, the heavier it becomes. You don't conquer emotions by suppressing them. You outgrow them by experiencing them. Imagine standing in cold water. The first seconds feel shocking. Your body tenses. You want to step out immediately, but if you remain still, something happens. Your body adapts. The water doesn't get warmer. You become more tolerant. Emotions work the same way. The initial wave of discomfort feels overwhelming. But if you don't run from it, it stabilizes. Anxiety peaks and then declines. Sadness rises and then softens. Embarrassment burns and then fades. But you rarely give it time to complete that cycle. You interrupt it with avoidance. And by interrupting it, you reinforce the belief that you cannot survive it. This is why struggle feels terrifying. Not because it will destroy you, but because it might make you feel something you don't want to feel. When you understand this, you begin to see fear differently. Fear isn't a sign to retreat. It's a signal that you're approaching emotional growth. There's a story you may recognize. You decide to pursue something meaningful. A new job, to a new relationship, a new challenge. At first, you feel excited. Then doubt creeps in. What if I fail? What if I look foolish? What if I'm not enough? Those thoughts create sensations in your body. Tightness, restlessness, heat in your chest. And because you've learned to interpret those sensations as danger, you step back. You tell yourself you'll try later. You tell yourself it's not the right time. But the truth is simpler. You were uncomfortable, and you didn't want to feel it. The irony is this. Every version of you that feels confident today was once uncomfortable. The confident speaker once felt stage fright. The skilled professional once felt incompetent. The emotionally secure partner once feared vulnerability. Confidence wasn't born from comfort. It was built by surviving discomfort repeatedly. And each time you allow yourself to feel anxiety without escaping it, you rewrite your internal narrative. You prove to yourself, I can handle this. That proof accumulates. Over time, fear loses its intensity, not because life becomes easier, but because your emotional capacity expands. Struggle stops feeling catastrophic when you realize you can survive the feelings it brings. You don't need to eliminate anxiety. You need to increase tolerance. You don't need to avoid embarrassment. You need to experience it and remain standing. You don't need to silence doubt. You need to act despite it. That's the shift. When you stop fearing emotions, struggle becomes less threatening. Because even if you fail, even if you're rejected, even if you feel exposed, you know you can endure the internal wave. And once you trust your ability to endure emotion, fear begins to shrink. Struggle loses its power over you, not because it disappears, but because you're no longer trying to outrun your own feelings. You stand still, you breathe, you allow the sensation, and in that allowance, something remarkable happens. You realize the emotion was temporary. You realize it didn't destroy you. You realize you're stronger than the wave. That realization is freedom. Because once you stop fearing the feeling, you stop fearing struggle. Chapter 4. Pain is information, not a verdict. When something painful happens, your mind rushes to interpret it, not just to understand it, but to judge it. And in that judgment, you often turn a temporary experience into a permanent conclusion. A mistake becomes, I'm incompetent. A rejection becomes, I'm not enough. A delay becomes, I'm falling behind. But pain is not a verdict, it's information. The problem is not that pain exists. The problem is that you personalize it too quickly. Think about physical pain for a moment. If you place your hand on a hot surface, pain alerts you. It doesn't insult you. It doesn't shame you. It doesn't declare you unworthy. It simply sends a signal. Something needs adjustment. Emotional pain works the same way. It signals misalignment. It highlights limits. It exposes blind spots. But instead of asking, what is this showing me? You often ask, what does this say about me? That question turns data into identity. And identity is heavier than data. There's a subtle but powerful shift here. When you treat pain as a verdict, you shut down. When you treat pain as information, you adapt. Imagine receiving critical feedback at work. If you interpret it as proof that you're incapable, you become defensive. You protect your ego, you resist improvement. But if you interpret it as information, you ask questions. You refine your skill, you grow. The feedback didn't change. Your interpretation did. And that interpretation determines your trajectory. You've likely experienced a moment when something failed, and you assumed it meant the end. A project collapsed, a plan fell apart, a relationship ended. It felt final. But later, with distance, you saw it differently. You realized it redirected you, it refined you, it strengthened you. The event didn't define you, your response shaped you. Pain has a purpose when you allow it to instruct instead of condemn. But that requires emotional discipline. Because your first instinct will always be self-protection. Your ego wants certainty. It wants validation. It wants reassurance that you're safe and competent. Pain disrupts that narrative. So your mind reacts with defensiveness or despair. But there is another option. Curiosity. Curiosity transforms pain. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of saying, this proves I'm failing, you ask, where can I improve? That subtle change in language changes your internal state. Language shapes perception. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. If you label pain as injustice, you cultivate resentment. If you label pain as instruction, you cultivate resilience. Consider a time when you pursued something ambitious and fell short. At first, it stung. You felt exposed. You questioned yourself, but if you examined it honestly, there were lessons hidden inside the disappointment. Maybe you lacked preparation. Maybe your strategy needed adjustment. Maybe your expectations were unrealistic. None of those insights attack your identity. They refine your approach. The difference between growth and stagnation is often the willingness to extract information from discomfort. But this requires humility, because to treat pain as information, you must accept that you don't know everything. You must accept that you're in progress. And when progress, by definition, includes mistakes. If you expect perfection, pain feels catastrophic. If you expect growth, pain feels instructional. That expectation shapes your entire experience of struggle. There's another layer to this. When you treat pain as a verdict, you become passive. Verdicts are final. They imply judgment. They imply no room for change. But information implies choice. Information says, here's what's happening. And from that place, you can decide your next move. Agency returns. Power returns. Clarity returns. You stop collapsing under pressure. Instead, you begin observing it. Observation creates space, and space allows rational thought to re-enter. In that space, you remember something important. You are not your latest mistake. You are not your last failure. You are not your most recent setback. You are the one interpreting them, and interpretation is within your control. This doesn't mean pain becomes pleasant. It means it becomes useful. Useful pain strengthens you. Personalized pain weakens you. The same event can either refine your character or fracture your confidence. The determining factor is how you frame it. If you see struggle as punishment, you withdraw. If you see struggle as training, you engage. Training is uncomfortable. It demands effort. It reveals weakness. It exposes gaps. But it also builds strength. The moment you stop asking what pain says about your worth and start asking what it says about your direction, you shift from insecurity to strategy. And strategy replaces fear with focus. Struggle no longer feels like an attack. It feels like a signal that something needs adjustment, a signal that growth is possible, a signal that you are in motion. Once you internalize this deeply, setbacks lose their emotional drama. They become checkpoints, and checkpoints are part of every meaningful journey. You don't stop at a checkpoint. You assess, you recalibrate, you continue. That is strength, not the absence of pain, but the ability to extract wisdom from it. When you begin to see pain as information rather than a verdict, you reclaim your authority. And with that authority, struggle becomes something you learn from, not something you fear. Chapter 5. Acceptance is strength, not surrender. There is a moment after something goes wrong when you face a quiet choice. You can fight what has already happened, or you can accept that it has happened. That choice determines whether you suffer longer than necessary. Acceptance has been misunderstood. You've likely associated it with weakness, with passivity, with giving up. But acceptance is none of those things. Acceptance is clarity. Clarity says, this is the situation, not the one you wanted, not the one you planned, but the one that exists. Without acceptance, your energy splits. Part of you tries to move forward. Part of you tries to reverse what cannot be reversed. That internal conflict drains you. Imagine trying to swim while arguing with the ocean. You won't move efficiently. You'll exhaust yourself fighting waves that will not disappear. Acceptance is not surrendering to the ocean. It's learning to move with it. There's a difference between accepting reality and approving of it. You can accept a loss without liking it. You can accept disappointment without pretending it doesn't hurt. You can accept an ending without celebrating it. Acceptance simply removes denial, and denial prolongs suffering. Think about a time when something ended unexpectedly. A relationship, a job, a plan you invested in. At first, you resisted it. You replayed conversations. You imagined alternative outcomes. You hoped it would reverse itself. Days passed, maybe weeks. The pain didn't decrease, because you were still negotiating with reality. The moment you finally said, "This is over," the pain didn't vanish, but it became cleaner. And clear pain is easier to carry than conflicted pain. Conflicted pain contains hope, denial, anger, bargaining. Clear pain contains truth, and truth is stabilizing. Acceptance stabilizes you. It removes illusion. When illusion fades, energy returns. You stop spending mental effort on what cannot change. You redirect it toward what can. That redirection is power. You may fear that accepting struggle means resigning yourself to it forever. But acceptance is not permanence. It is the starting point for change. You cannot improve what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot rebuild what you pretend is intact. You cannot adapt to a situation you deny exists. Acceptance opens the door to intelligent action. Without it, you react emotionally. With it, you respond strategically. Imagine losing an opportunity you deeply wanted. If you resist the loss, you may spiral into self-criticism. You may blame others. You may withdraw. But if you accept it fully, you can ask a different question. What now? That question only appears after acceptance. It shifts you from fixation to movement. Acceptance does not remove ambition. It refines it. It removes fantasy and replaces it with reality. And reality is the only place where growth happens. Many people stay stuck not because they lack ability, but because they resist their current position. They want to be further ahead. They want to be more confident. They want to be more successful, but they refuse to accept where they actually are. That refusal creates tension, and tension without direction becomes frustration. When you accept your starting point, progress becomes possible. You stop pretending, you stop exaggerating, you stop minimizing, since you simply acknowledge, "This is where I am." That statement is powerful. It contains honesty, and honesty creates momentum. Acceptance also changes how you experience emotion. When you feel sadness and accept it, it moves through you. When you feel anxiety and accept it, it softens. When you feel disappointment and accept it, it clarifies your values. But when you resist emotion, you amplify it. Resistance says, "I shouldn't feel this." Acceptance says, "I do feel this." The second statement allows processing. The first traps you. You don't grow by denying discomfort. You grow by integrating it. Acceptance is integration. It weaves difficulty into your narrative instead of isolating it as an anomaly. When you integrate struggle, it becomes part of your strength, not a stain on your story. The strongest people are not those who avoid pain. They are those who accept reality quickly. They adjust, they recalibrate, they move forward. They don't waste energy arguing with what already exists. And because they conserve that energy, they appear resilient. Resilience is not emotional numbness. It is rapid acceptance. The faster you accept reality, the faster you regain control of your response. Control of response is where power lives. Struggle loses its intimidation when you know you can face facts without collapsing. You don't need life to be easier. You need to be steadier. Acceptance builds steadiness. It anchors you in truth. And truth, even when uncomfortable, is solid ground. Once you stand on solid ground, you can build. Without acceptance, you build on illusion. Illusion always collapses. Reality, once acknowledged, becomes workable. That is why acceptance is strength. It requires courage to look directly at what hurts. It requires maturity to stop blaming. It requires discipline to say, "This is what is." But from that place, fear decreases, because fear thrives in uncertainty and denial. When you accept, uncertainty shrinks. You see clearly, and clarity dissolves unnecessary anxiety. Struggle may still exist, But you are no longer at war with it, you are working with it. And working with reality is always more powerful than fighting it. Chapter 6. Emotional control is inner security. You cannot control outcomes. You cannot control timing. You cannot control other people's decisions. You cannot control whether life unfolds according to your plans. But you can control your response. And that control is the closest thing to security you will ever have. Many people search for safety and external stability, a stable job, a stable relationship, a stable income, a stable environment. But external stability is fragile. Markets shift, people change, plans collapse. If your sense of safety depends entirely on what happens outside you, your nervous system will always feel on edge. True stability comes from emotional regulation, not suppression or not denial. Regulation. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't let feelings dictate your behavior automatically. There is a small gap between stimulus and response. Most people close that gap instantly. Something happens, emotion rises, reaction follows. But strength lives inside that gap. When you lengthen it, you regain power. Imagine receiving a harsh comment. The first impulse might be anger, defensiveness, retaliation. If you react immediately, you escalate the situation. But if you pause, even for 5 seconds, something shifts. The emotion still exists, but it no longer controls you. That pause is emotional discipline. Discipline creates freedom. Without it, you become predictable. Anyone can trigger you. Any situation can destabilize you. With it, you become steady. Steadiness creates respect, both from others and from yourself. Emotional control begins with awareness. You cannot regulate what you do not recognize. And notice the early signals: tension in your shoulders, tightness in your chest, heat rising in your face. Those sensations are cues. They are not commands. The moment you treat them as commands, you surrender authority. But when you treat them as information, you regain it. You might say internally, "I feel anger," not "I am angry." That subtle shift creates distance. Distance creates clarity. Clarity enables choice. Emotions are waves. If you chase them or fight them, they overpower you. If you observe them, they pass. This is not theory. You've experienced it before. Think about a time when you were furious. In the moment, it felt permanent, but hours later, the intensity faded. The situation might not have changed, but the wave subsided. If you had reacted at the peak of that wave, you might have created consequences that lasted far longer than the emotion itself. That's the danger of impulsive reaction. It turns temporary feelings into permanent outcomes. Emotional control prevents that. It protects your future from your present state. There's another benefit to regulation. It builds self-trust. When you know you can face stress without unraveling, you stop fearing stress. When you know you can feel anxiety without panicking, you stop fearing anxiety. When you know you can endure embarrassment without collapsing, you stop fearing exposure. Inner security grows when you prove to yourself that you can handle your own emotions. Struggle becomes less intimidating because you're no longer afraid of losing control internally. You may not control the storm, but you can anchor yourself within it. That anchor is composure. Composure is trained. It does not appear automatically. It is built in small moments. The delayed reply instead of the instant reaction. The deep breath instead of the sharp response. The quiet reflection instead of the emotional outburst. Each small act of restraint strengthens you. Over time, your baseline changes. What once overwhelmed you now feels manageable. What once triggered you now feels neutral. This is not emotional numbness. It is emotional maturity. Maturity recognizes that feelings are temporary states, not permanent identities. You don't define yourself by a moment of frustration. You don't collapse because of a surge of doubt. You remain grounded. Grounded people are difficult to destabilize. And when you are difficult to destabilize, you become powerful. Not loud power, quiet power. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind that doesn't panic under pressure. The kind that responds thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Struggle often feels frightening because you associate it with losing emotional control. You imagine yourself overwhelmed. You imagine yourself breaking. You imagine yourself reacting poorly. But when you train regulation, those fears weaken. You begin to trust your steadiness, and trust dissolves fear. The next time you feel a surge of emotion, don't suppress it. Notice it. Name it. Pause. Ask yourself, what response aligns with the person I want to be? That question shifts you from instinct to intention. Intention shapes identity. Identity shapes destiny. Emotional control is not about eliminating feeling. It is about aligning behavior with values, even when feelings are intense. When you master that alignment, struggle loses its edge. Because even in chaos, you remain composed. And composure is strength under pressure. The world may remain unpredictable, but you become predictable to yourself. You know how you respond. You know you won't betray your standards in a moment of stress. That knowledge is stability. And stability inside you is far more powerful than stability around you. When you understand this deeply, fear begins to fade, because you realize something important. No matter what happens externally, you can handle yourself internally. And that is enough. Chapter 7. Struggle builds the identity you'll one day rely on. You don't discover who you are in comfort. You discover who you are under pressure. Comfort hides your edges. Pressure reveals them. When everything is stable, you don't need courage. When everything is predictable, you don't need resilience. When everything is smooth, you don't need discipline. Struggle forces those traits to surface, and that's why it feels intense. It isn't just testing your plans, it's shaping your identity. Think about a moment in your life that changed you, not a happy milestone, a difficult one, a setback, a betrayal, a loss, a failure that felt deeply personal. At the time, it may have felt unfair, but look at who you became after it. More cautious, more aware, more independent, more emotionally mature. The event didn't just happen to you. It formed you. Identity is not built through affirmation. It's built through endurance. You don't believe you're strong because someone told you. You believe you're strong because you survived something that could have broken you. And survival rewrites self-perception. There is a quiet transformation that happens when you endure difficulty. The first time you face something overwhelming, you doubt yourself. You question your ability. You question your resilience. But when you move through it, even imperfectly, something shifts. You begin to trust yourself. Self-trust is not created by success. It's created by survival. You begin to think, I handled that. That thought becomes a foundation. The next time life becomes unstable, you don't collapse as quickly. Because you have evidence. Evidence that you can endure discomfort. Evidence that fear doesn't define you. Evidence that pain is temporary. Struggle builds that evidence. Without it, your confidence remains theoretical. With it, your confidence becomes embodied. There's a difference between thinking you're resilient and knowing you are. Knowing comes from experience. Experience comes from difficulty. You might wish certain struggles never happened. But if you remove them, you would remove the version of you that emerged because of them. The discipline you developed, the patience you cultivated, the boundaries you learned to set. Those traits didn't grow in comfort. They grew in friction. There is also a deeper truth. Struggle introduces you to your limits and then expands them. The first time you work through exhaustion, you realize you can go further than you thought. The first time you speak despite fear, you realize your voice doesn't disappear under pressure. The first time you recover from heartbreak, you realize your heart is stronger than you assumed. Each of those moments reshapes your internal narrative. Before the struggle, you believed you couldn't handle it. After the struggle, you know you can. That shift is identity evolution. Identity evolves through challenge. If you avoid struggle entirely, your identity remains fragile. It relies on external stability. But when you've endured instability, your identity becomes rooted internally. You don't need constant validation. You don't need perfect outcomes. You don't need certainty. Because you trust your ability to navigate uncertainty. That trust is freedom. Many people attempt to build identity through achievement alone. They chase titles. They chase recognition. They chase visible markers of success. But achievement without adversity produces brittle confidence. It shatters under unexpected pressure. Adversity strengthens identity at its core. It forces introspection. It demands growth. It reveals weaknesses that must be addressed. And when you address those weaknesses, you become integrated. Integrated people are stable. They know their strengths. They know their limitations. They don't collapse when imperfections are exposed. Struggle accelerates that integration. It exposes your impatience. It reveals your insecurities. It highlights your coping patterns. If you pay attention, struggle becomes a mirror, not a weapon. A mirror shows you what needs refinement. It doesn't attack you. You might resist that mirror at first. It's uncomfortable to see your flaws clearly. But clarity leads to correction. Correction leads to growth. Growth leads to strength. And strength becomes part of who you are. Over time, the person you become through struggle is someone you can rely on. Not because life became easier, but because you became steadier. That steadiness is identity solidified by experience. When the next obstacle appears, and it will, you won't approach it as the same person who faced the last one. You'll approach it with accumulated resilience. Each struggle leaves residue. If you allow it, that residue becomes wisdom. Wisdom shortens recovery time. Wisdom reduces panic. Wisdom replaces emotional reactivity with perspective. Perspective says, "This feels overwhelming now, but I've survived before." That memory changes your nervous system's response. Fear decreases. Confidence increases. Not blind confidence, grounded confidence. Grounded confidence doesn't assume success. It assumes adaptability. Adaptability is the ultimate advantage. Life will continue to present challenges. But if each one builds identity instead of breaking it, you begin to welcome growth disguised as difficulty. You stop asking how to avoid struggle. You start asking how to use it. That shift is powerful, because once you see struggle as identity training, you no longer fear it in the same way. You understand it has a function, and function reduces intimidation. Struggle becomes a forge, and you become stronger not by escaping the fire, but by moving through it. The version of you that exists on the other side of hardship is not the same as the one who entered it. You are sharper, clearer, more disciplined, more self-aware. That evolution is the hidden reward. Struggle does not diminish you. It defines you. If you let it shape rather than shatter. And once you internalize that deeply, fear begins to fade. Because you realize something undeniable. Every difficult chapter in your life was also a chapter of transformation. And transformation is not something to fear. It's something to embrace. Chapter 8. When you stop fighting life, you start winning. There is a subtle shift that changes everything. It doesn't happen outside you. It happens within you. It's the moment you stop treating life as an opponent. For a long time, you may have believed that struggle meant life was against you. When things went wrong, it felt personal. When doors closed, it felt targeted. When plans collapsed, it felt unfair. But life is not against you. It is indifferent, and that indifference is not cruelty. It's neutrality. The moment you stop interpreting neutral events as personal attacks, your emotional burden decreases. You begin to see that difficulty is not punishment, it is process. Winning in life does not mean avoiding struggle. It means navigating it intelligently. And intelligence begins when you stop fighting what is. Fighting reality keeps you in constant tension. You argue with outcomes. You resist timelines. You resent obstacles. That constant friction exhausts you. But when you stop fighting life, something unexpected happens. You gain leverage. Leverage comes from alignment. When you align with reality instead of resisting it, you move with efficiency. You stop wasting energy wishing things were different. You use that energy to adapt. Adaptation is power. Consider water flowing around a rock. It doesn't argue with the rock. It doesn't attempt to destroy it immediately. It moves around it. Over time, it reshapes it. That is intelligent strength. You don't need to overpower every obstacle. You need to outlast it. When you stop demanding that life be smooth, you stop being destabilized by its rough edges. Rough edges become expected. Expected difficulty feels less threatening. Unexpected difficulty feels catastrophic. The shift is simple but profound. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How do I respond in a way that strengthens me?" That question changes your posture. It moves you from reaction to strategy. Strategy wins over time. There will always be things outside your control. Market changes, economic shifts, other people's decisions, aging, loss. If your sense of peace depends on controlling those variables, you will live in constant tension. But if your peace depends on how you respond, you reclaim stability. Winning is internal first. External results are inconsistent. Internal composure can be trained. When you stop fighting life, you stop taking every setback personally. A missed opportunity becomes redirection. A failure becomes feedback. A delay becomes preparation. You don't pretend everything is positive. You simply refuse to label it catastrophic. That refusal changes your nervous system. Instead of panic, you feel alertness. Instead of despair, you feel curiosity. Curiosity creates movement. Despair creates paralysis. When you understand struggle deeply, you realize something liberating. Nothing is wasted. Every difficulty shapes perception. Every disappointment sharpens awareness. Every challenge increases capacity. If you look back at your life, the periods that stretched you the most likely matured you the most. The stable seasons were comfortable. The unstable seasons were transformative. Transformation is uncomfortable by nature. It dissolves old patterns. It confronts old assumptions. It forces new behaviors. But transformation is growth. And growth is what you truly seek, even if you fear the process. You may think you want a struggle-free life, but what you actually want is a life where struggle doesn't terrify you. That's different. When fear disappears, struggle becomes manageable. When struggle becomes manageable, progress accelerates. When progress accelerates, confidence compounds. Confidence built through adaptation is durable. It doesn't shatter at the first sign of resistance. It adjusts. Winning, then, is not about controlling life. It's about mastering your relationship with it. You stop measuring yourself by how smooth your path is. You measure yourself by how steady you remain under pressure. That steadiness becomes your advantage. Others may panic, others may collapse, others may blame. You respond, you adapt, you continue. That consistency compounds over time. Compounding is subtle. It doesn't feel dramatic day to day, but months later, years later, you realize you've built something solid. Not because life became easy, but because you became resilient. Resilience is not loud, it's quiet endurance. It's the refusal to let temporary discomfort dictate permanent decisions. It's the discipline to stay aligned with your values, even when emotions surge. It's the wisdom to accept what cannot be changed and adjust what can. That combination makes you powerful, not invincible, but adaptable. Adaptability outperforms rigidity. Rigidity breaks under pressure. Adaptability bends and returns stronger. When you stop fighting life, you stop wasting energy on what cannot be controlled. That reclaimed energy fuels growth. Growth reduces fear. Reduced fear increases action. Action builds momentum. Momentum creates results. Results reinforce identity, and identity shapes destiny. All of it begins with one realization. Life is not something to conquer, it is something to navigate. Navigation requires awareness, acceptance, and adjustment. You now understand all three. You understand that struggle is not the enemy. Resistance is. You understand that fear is about feeling, not failing. You understand that pain carries information. You understand that acceptance is strength. You understand that emotional control creates inner security. You understand that struggle builds identity. And when you integrate all of that, something shifts permanently. Pure struggle may still appear, but it no longer intimidates you, because you no longer interpret it as a threat to who you are. You see it as part of who you are becoming. And that realization changes everything. You don't need life to be easier. You need to be stronger in your response. And now you are. Struggle will still visit your life. That part does not change. There will still be unexpected losses, moments of doubt, days when your effort doesn't match the outcome. But what changes, if you truly understand everything you've just heard, is your relationship with it. And that changes everything. You began this journey believing that struggle was the enemy, something to avoid, something to outsmart, something to eliminate. But now you see it differently. Struggle is not the enemy. Resistance is. Pain is not the enemy. Interpretation is. Emotion is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Life was never trying to defeat you. It was shaping you. The fear you carried around difficulty wasn't about the difficulty itself. It was about what you thought it meant. You thought it meant you weren't enough. You thought it meant you were behind. You thought it meant you were failing. But struggle does not measure your worth. It reveals your growth edge. And once you understand that, something inside you steadies. The next time something goes wrong, you won't collapse the way you once did. You might still feel disappointment. You might still feel frustration, but you won't panic. You won't turn it into a story about your identity. You'll pause, you'll breathe, you'll say, "This is happening." And from that place of clarity, you will choose your response. That is maturity. That is strength. That is what it means to stop fearing struggle. You will not eliminate discomfort from your life, but you will eliminate unnecessary suffering. You will stop arguing with reality. You will stop running from emotion. You will stop personalizing every obstacle. And when you stop doing those things, your nervous system settles. Fear loses its grip. You become steadier under pressure. You become calmer in uncertainty. You become someone who can handle hard things. Not because life is easy, but because you are grounded. There is a powerful truth you can carry with you from this point forward. Every time you face something difficult, you are being invited to become stronger. Not by forcing the situation to change, but by refining your response. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Struggle is training. Training does not feel comfortable. It feels demanding. It feels exposing. It feels humbling. But it also builds capacity. And capacity is what gives you confidence. Confidence built through comfort is fragile. Confidence built through endurance is unshakable. You're not here to live a struggle-free life. You are here to become someone who can stand firm in the middle of it. The difference is subtle, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The next setback you experience will not be proof that you are failing. It will be proof that you are in motion. The next wave of doubt will not be a signal to retreat. It will be a signal that you are expanding beyond your previous limits. And the next moment of discomfort will not be something to escape. It will be something to move through. Fear dissolves when you trust your ability to endure. Trust is built through action. Action begins with acceptance. Acceptance begins with understanding. And now you understand. Life will continue to test you, but you no longer see those tests as attacks. You see them as opportunities to sharpen your identity. You're no longer asking for a smooth path. You're building steady footing, and steady footing carries you further than smooth roads ever could. So when difficulty appears again, and it will, remember this moment. Remember that struggle is not the enemy. Remember that your response is your power. Remember that fear fades when you stop fighting reality and step forward, not with panic, not with resentment, but with steadiness. Because once you truly understand this, you don't stop facing struggle. You stop fearing it.